Today we're learning how to cast pewter to make these ember marks. To find out how I do that and what the heck that means, stay tuned. Greetings adventurers and welcome to Skill Tree, where we learn how to do just about everything. So as some of you know, I participate in Conquest, the largest LARP in the world. You can find out more about that up here. Anyways, the whole reason for Maddie and my characters at that camp is to collect stories and have people come and tell us stories. That's how we get our power. But as our camp has gotten bigger, we get a lot of people from outside of our camp coming in to do the same thing, tell us stories, sit by our fires, hang out. So I thought it would be cool to really lean into that and become a destination for that thing to happen. Basically, I want to steal a page out of the Kingkiller Chronicles in which there is a place called the Aeolian where people come and perform, and only the best performers get this little charm that they can wear on themselves. And just by virtue of seeing that charm, you know that this person you're hiring to be a bard or whatever is fantastic, right? That is the mark of you being amazing at what you do. So I want to do that. I want to make some sort of a little mark that I can give out to people who either really impress us with an incredible story or feat of might or something. And to do that, I'm going to tackle the thing that I've had the hardest time doing on this channel. I want to cast it out of metal. You can check out some of these episodes here in which I've failed terribly to do so, but yeah, man, I'm going to try again. I'm so committed to learning this skill. So come with me as you watch me struggle through this and hopefully finally make this thing happen. So to start with, we needed a thing that this is going to be. I didn't want to copy it directly from the books and have little pipes, little pan flute pipe pin or whatever. So I came up with this image here, which is basically a little flame with a different colored stone in the middle. The color of stone will represent what cool thing you did to impress us so. Were you incredible at battle? Did you tell an amazing story or sing a great song? This way, not only could you be given one, but you could actually make it a game to collect all the different kinds that we have. I decided to call them EMBERMARKS, representing the flame of excellence that burns eternal within. But how do I take it from my brain space into meat space here? For that, I figured I'd actually just use this polymer clay here. This is super sculpey, I believe, and I really like using this stuff. So I just used a little bit of thread here that I sawed back and forth to cut a piece off that I could use. And then I put it through this pasta maker here, just to get it really evenly flat. And if you want to work with clay like this, I can't recommend a cheap little pasta maker like that enough. I've gotten so much use out of it, and it's so good to have material that's perfect to work with. Anywho, I wanted this to be a little bit thicker, so I just simply bent this stuff in half to give me the thickness that I was looking for. Then I used an awl as my pen, so I can just kind of scratch the general shape into the surface. Nice bit is it's clay. If you mess up, you just kind of lightly pat it and it disappears and you can try again. Anyways, once I was happy with that design, I went in with my X-Acto blade and really carefully cut the whole thing out so I didn't deform it or warp it at all. All right, so I want a little circular recess for my stone to be able to actually sit into. So to make that happen, I just kind of pushed into the middle with this ball stylus here, giving me this perfect little circle. Then I went around the outside of that with another smaller ball stylus, just to give it a little bit of a raised rim around that whole thing. Then finally, I went inside just underneath that rim to give myself a recess on the inside. Basically, I'm not going to trust that I can find an actual stone that will fit inside of these, and I need to make a bunch of them eventually. So, even if I was to shape them or something, that's just a bunch of work. So instead, I'm planning on using something like a resin inside of there, but I don't want them to pop out easily. So having that little inner lip is going to make it so the resin spreads past that opening and can't come out again. And though this, I feel, is a good idea, it also, man, it bites me in the ass real hard later on. You'll see, but the pain in the ass. For one last thing, I just use an awl at the tip here to push a hole all the way through, so we have a place to make a jump ring or something so you can actually hang it on yourself, on a chain or a pin or whatever. Now, the cool thing about polymer clays is you can actually bake them in the oven to make them hard. And after about 20 minutes of doing so, I had this bad boy here, which looks perfect. It's exactly what I want it to be. So now I just have to figure out how to make this into metal. My first idea on how to do this is actually to make a little container and to use a casting sand. To do this, I just cut these 4 pieces of wood the same length and then used my hot glue gun to glue all the corners together, making this rough little box here. And to this box, I'm adding this casting sand. This stuff is basically really super fine grains of a sand or something that's mixed with, I think maybe a clay. I don't know, it holds its shape really well when you push on it. But basically, because it is so fine and does hold its shape, it's really good at picking up details of things you want to cast. Now you see at first in that clip there, I just kind of started sprinkling it inside of that box. My initial thought was to actually fill the whole thing up and then kind of push the ember mark down into it to get the imprint. But I found that didn't really work. It just kind of concaved everything in and didn't look good. But instead, I'm gonna do it the way you're technically kind of supposed to do it, and I'm gonna actually have the little ember mark down at the bottom and then fill the sand on top of it so I have a perfectly flat surface and like everything built around it. You'll see. But in order to do that, I need a way to also just pull it out nice and evenly. So I end up just kind of hot gluing this little stick to the back of it here, giving me a handle to manipulate it with. And that I'm just gonna put into this hole in a board here, just so the ember mark stays nice and flat when I'm putting the sand in. To make sure it releases from the mold easily, I just added some baby powder, brushing away the excess and making sure it gets in all the little nooks and crannies. Then I put my little frame over it and used a strainer to make sure that my sand was as fine as possible, right where it was making contact with the ember mark. Doing this though made me very much aware that like this is the sand I've used in all of my previous forays into trying this, and it still had like little particulate of stuff in it. I think I've had it for too long, so it wasn't staying as well as I had hoped it would stay. Yeah, this is foreboding. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. So once I've compacted it down and made sure it was nice and even, I flipped this thing over and then tried to carefully pull it out as straight as possible so I didn't mess up the sides. And I immediately messed up the sides. So there's a two-prong problem here. One, like I said, that sand isn't in the best of shapes, and I think it's kind of losing some of its staying power there. But two, remember when I said that little internal recess there would bite me in the ass later on? This is it doing it. It's doing its job. It is holding the sand inside of there. So when I pull it out, it actually pulls just against the entire thing and just messes it up every time. It's dumb. It was a dumb miss on my part, thinking I had to cast it, but I still want to have that recess in there. So my plan B on this is to make a version of it out of wax so that I can melt it away and not have to deal with the pulling. But in order to do that, I have to make a wax version of it. Perfect. So I decided to make another mold out of silicone. I know, this is turning into a thing, I'm sorry. I will succeed at this, damn it. I did this the lazy way though. I actually just used this roll of tape here, which I hot glued to a board. That is now my frame. In the middle of the frame, I set my original clay ember mark here, right down at the bottom, and then hit it with a little bit of this mold release here. This is just gonna make sure that the silicone doesn't stick too tightly to it and it's nice and easy to remove. Then using Smooth-On's Mold Max, I added equal parts of the silicone to a mixing cup, letting the silicone hit my mixer on the way down just so it didn't have as far to fall. This will help reduce bubbles. And then stirred until I was sure they were both combined well. Then I added a little bit of that silicone mixture directly to my piece so that I can make sure there's no air bubbles or anything in that smaller section, before adding the rest of the silicone mixture over the whole thing. I found that doing it this way really does greatly reduce the amount of air bubbles that end up in the piece. Also, just kind of pounding the table next to it. I don't have a little vibrating like tray or something, but I found that you just kind of hit it and eventually all the bubbles raise up. And after about an hour, I was able to demold this thing, and I think it is perfect. It looks really, really good. To test it though, I just melted some beeswax and poured it inside of that recess. And again, just made sure to like stretch it and tap it so that all of the air bubbles would come out. And look at that. Look at how good it looks. And the good thing is the silicone is reusable over and over again, and the wax hardens super quick. I have so many of these wax ones. I have a bunch of different ways I want to try to do this, so I made like 30. They're awesome though. Now anytime I'm met with a problem like that and I have to work through a solution on the fly, I'm really glad to have today's sponsor, Fume, in my hand. If you haven't seen it before, Fume is a flavored air device, which does exactly what it says. It flavors the air, and I've had it on the show a bunch because I genuinely really love it. The way it works is it has these little flavor cores that go inside here, and when you take the air into your mouth, it tastes like whatever the flavor core is. It tastes really good, actually. They have a boatload of flavors, but because we're going into the fall, I'm using the cinnamon hearts, which I really, really like. It just kind of feels fall and nice. Anyways, it's great. It's not vapor, there's no nicotine, it's just flavor. Which also means you could use it anywhere. Like I'll bring it to a restaurant or something when I'm doing work. It's fun to fiddle with. It's made for like fidgeting. It's got a little clickiness to it, really great weight. And if you include on one of the rubber toppers here, it's kind of fun to chew, which is exactly what I do when I'm trying to work through a problem. I just kind of sit and chew on stuff. Anyways, if you want to join the 700,000 people who have given Fume a try at this point, you're in luck. Because for a limited time, if you order the Journey Pack using my code SKILLTREE, you get a free topper in the mix. Just use the link in the description or check out this QR code here to get yours today. Okay, so now that we have the wax versions ready to go, I just put it in the sand like before, and then used a heat gun to melt it. While doing that, I took my little brick O pewter and put it on my hot plate here. The cool thing about pewter is it actually melts at a really low temperature, so you can just melt this metal like on your stovetop. Just make sure you use a pot or something that you don't mind having molten metal in, I guess. Once that was all melted, I just removed the stuff that's at the top, which I believe is called the dross. It's all the extra impurities or whatever that's on top of the metal. And then carefully poured it into the space here, kind of trying to shake it off and get it as flat as possible. And this is when I realized I'm a numbnut, just an idiot. All this came out to be is just kind of a glob of metal, fairly shapeless. The reason is I didn't add anywhere for the air to escape. So I poured it in, trapped the air pocket just inside of there, and then just kind of let it sit. Instead, what I should have done is dug another little kind of lane for the air to escape so I can kind of fill it up on one side, it'll push the air out and fill that space up more evenly. But the sand that I used here was like the best of the bad sand that I had. And every time from here on that I tried to add anything, it just kind of fell apart. Like when I melt the wax, all of it would cave in. I did a few tests just off camera to see how it would go. And I didn't want to waste the film because it didn't go. It was bad. But as I said, I am hell-bent on making this thing work. So, new plan. I took a bunch of these wax little figures and put them in the bottom of this clear case here. On top of that clear case, I poured on some Hydrostone. Hydrostone is basically like a thinner, kind of harder version of plaster. I happen to have it, and it's really good at picking up extra details, so that's what I went with. After making sure there were no air bubbles in there, I left it to harden, and then again hit the whole thing with a heat gun to melt out all that wax, leaving me with these nice, hopefully perfect little cavities here. Then it was back to melting some more pewter and being stressed because I have like a weekend to shoot these things to give you content, and I really didn't want this to be just another casting failure video. It was sad. But to give myself the best chances, I actually heated up the mold here with my heat gun first, just to give me a little bit more working time with the metal, and then continued heating it as I poured it into those spaces. Then while it was still molten, I just used the back of a spoon to make sure the backs of them are as flat as I could get it. Now, the good thing about this particular kind of mold is it's very fast and very cheap to do. The Hydrostone doesn't cost a lot for the amount I'm using, and all I do is pour it on top of a thing and kind of hope for the best. The bad thing about it is only a one-time use, so in order to get these out, I had to break the whole thing apart. But totally worth it, because after just a little bit of cleanup, look at this thing. Oh, it looks beautiful. Meaning I casted a thing. I casted a thing and it came out looking good. I'm very, very proud. And all I had to do to clean this up is use some files to get in between the spaces, remove any of the excess material, used a wire wheel on my Dremel to try to get it a little extra shiny, and then I finished the whole thing off with some steel wool to really polish it up. And oh my god, I am ecstatic. I'm sorry I had to bring you on this whole long ride of watching me screw it up at first. If you just came on here trying to figure out how to cast something, I'm sure you probably clicked off by now, to be honest. You're like, this guy's an idiot. But for those of you who've been watching me for a while, this is a milestone for me. I'm very proud of it. The last kind of setup thing I did was actually just use a small drill bit to hollow out that spot a jump ring is gonna go in. Just because although it was there, it was very barely there in all of the molds, so I just wanted to make sure it was good. Okay, with that we have the shape of the thing, but now we need to fill it with the stones. That's really kind of the heart of this, right? The different colored stones. And as I said, in order to do that, I decided to use a resin. Now to color that resin, I'm gonna be using some mica powder, not only because the colors are really nice and rich, but it also has this really neat kind of iridescent sparkly effect with it that I think is gonna look really cool with these things. I found the trick is to add just a little bit in there. By doing that, you allow it still to be kind of see-through, and you can see like the flecks of the mica powder in there, which adds that shiny, shimmery effect to it. Now for my resin, I'm actually just gonna use this UV resin because I'm impatient and I don't like to wait. Also, I want it to be like a dome, right? I don't want just to be an inset stone. So I think with that, I can actually make it solid really fast by exposing it to UV light and keeping that kind of surface tension bubble exactly how I want it. So after mixing the color in, I started by adding just a little bit into that space, basically making it flat to start with. Then I stuck it underneath this UV thing that's actually used for like hardening the coating on nails. and just left it in there for 1 cycle. And that was enough to get this really hard, nice and shiny finish. Man, I love UV resin. Instant satisfaction, so good for me. All right, so now that I have that base, it's easier for me just to kind of pile more of this resin on top of it until the surface tension makes this nice little dome or bubble here. Then it was back underneath before it settled all the way out to try to freeze it in that dome shape. And this worked perfectly. It kept the shape exactly how I needed it. The color is super vivid, like you can see all the little swirls and stuff inside where the mica powder's moving around. I love how that looks. That's so cool. And because I love it, I did it 4 more times just to test it out. And look at how badass these things are. They look so cool. I think that would look really neat to like have pinned on your lapel or something and people can see it and be like, oh, you did a thing. I love that. It'll be fun to try to play with it with different materials, like maybe different colors for the outside metal. Maybe I can do it in bronze or something. I've even contemplated doing it out of like a jesmonite, which is a different kind of resin that can mimic a lot of other materials. So we can make it look like it's made out of stone or something. I think that might be really, really cool. And it'd be easier because I could just use the silicone mold to do that. Oh, also, while I was researching this, I found out that Smooth On actually makes a silicone that's a high temperature silicone that you could use that to cast things like pewter in. So it's the best of both worlds. It's a reusable mold that we can use to like cast pewter and stuff. So that might be the next thing I try. But I'm so over the moon I was able to actually make this work. It's so cool. And what do you guys think of that idea? Do you think that would be fun to have these like as little badges of honor of things that you've achieved? And if so, what type of achievements and colors do you think there should be? I'd love to hear your point of view of that. Now, thank you for joining me on this little mad quest to actually cast something. I don't know why I've had such problems with it in the past, man. But if you've been watching this show for a while, I hope you're happy with me because I'm happy with me for this. If you did enjoy this trip into madness and then eventual success, do give me some of that like it love, and don't forget to subscribe so you know when I release new content. Speaking of a descent into madness, also make sure that you're checking out our Discord. Our Discord's full of the most amazing people in this community. Like, look at all the stuff they make. They're constantly not only putting incredible stuff out there, but helping each other to make this stuff, to learn new skills, and just generally supporting and being awesome to each other. It's one of the most amazing communities that I'm part of, and every day I'm super grateful for everybody on there. So if you want to become part of the conversation, why don't you check it out? Link in the description below. In the meantime, though, keep leveling up, you. You've made it to the end screen. YouTube loves it when you do that, and it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Another fantastic way to support this channel is by joining these people's noble ranks. These are our Patreon members, and we can't do any of this without them. It's because of them I'm able to afford the random materials like pewter or whatever in order to make these things. A giant shout out to our Grandmaster tier Patreon members, Froggy and Dragon Designs. You guys rock, and it means everything to us that you support us in this way, so thank you for everything that you do. If you like what we do here and want to support us, consider joining our Patreon, link in the description below. Otherwise, you can check out one of these videos that YouTube thinks you'd like, and that helps out a lot too. All right, now that I found out the secret, I'm gonna go cast like 1 million of these, so I have them to give away at the event. It's gonna be really exciting. Can't wait.